Legitimacy in pro wrestling is talked about every day, be it whatever brand or vice you choose to watch, be it your X feed, your Instagram, your social media, your Facebook. On Fridays, if you're a New York fan, still in the daily news. Or it's talked about in the indies, from the locker room to the posters. Legitimacy. I am going to be talking with someone who is in fact legitimate. Why is he legitimate? Maybe it's because he's worked with someone that you're watching right now or have watched before or will watch soon. Maybe he's legitimate because of his actual first run in promoting, kind of being a catalyst for everything we have now, amongst other promoters, of course. Maybe he's successful and legitimate because of his absence and then his success after the fact. Maybe he's legitimate because of plain luck. Or maybe he's legitimate because he actually has his finger on the pulse of professional wrestling. We'll get into this and so much more. We're talking about someone who is a mainstay in Tri-State Independent Professional Wrestling. My guest this week, the following conversation is scheduled for one fall. ISPW owner and proprietor, Tommy Fierro. Tommy, welcome to the program.
Hey, man, how are you? Sorry that my handsome mug's not up there for you guys to see. My store is located in the mountains of Sussex County, New Jersey, where Wi-Fi is something that no one's ever heard of up here. And that's why I actually do my own podcast, but I only do audio because of the Wi-Fi connection up here. So I apologize for having the ISPW logo up there and not me.
I want to point out that Tommy's podcast has also been in the top 10 of the wrestling section many a time with the likes of Bruce Pritchard, Chris Van Vliet, if that's how you say his name, Jeff Jarrett, amongst many other wrestling podcasts and pundits. Tommy, first and foremost, how are you?
Good, man. Very happy to be on your show. Big fan of yours, as you know.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to talking some old school wrestling with you.
I really want to talk old school wrestling, the now wrestling. I met you almost a year ago, and that's why I said, hey, let me check in with Tommy. I hope he's got some time for me. And we made it happen, which I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate. I gotta say, that I know your story, and recently I've been seeing your timeline, and I'm seeing all the stories pop up from when you did local television and national with UPN and all these networks, when certain old school wrestlers were profiled, when you were profiled as a promoter. What is it about professional wrestling that you love so much? Because ultimately, we'll get into this a little bit. You started, you took a break, you came back, and you really could have hung it up, right? Your first run, you did so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for those very kind words. So, yeah, I mean, I grew up just like probably the majority of anyone else that's either listening to this podcast or is in our industry, a huge fan. So when I was a little kid, I was sitting on my grandfather's floor. I would sleep over there Friday nights, and then one Saturday morning, I was sitting on the floor playing with toys, and my grandfather was watching WWF. And when my head went up and connected with the television, that was it for me, man. So like from that moment on, I became a diehard wrestling fan. And the cool thing is back in the day, when it was in the 80s and, I was growing up, nowadays you get lucky if WWE comes to your market twice a year. That's a lot. So back then they primarily they were running all over, but they did A shows, B shows, C shows, and they were running 350 something days a year. So they would come to the Brendan Byrne Arena when I was a kid every month. And and I would go every month. And what was cool back then too, like you would look into the newspapers like the Star Ledger or like you said, the Daily News or whatever.
Yeah,
and they would
Tribunes
cover
and stuff.
Yeah, they would cover it. So not only, not only would they do a, feature on it, like, hey, like let's just say, for example, was Hulk Hogan against Kamala, and it would say, Hogan colliding with Kamala this Friday night at MSG. And then always the next day after the show, they would post the results in the newspaper. So it was big back then, man. So I went every month as a kid.
I'm curious. I'm curious real quick. I don't mean to cut you off, but you'll understand the question. Was the Brandenburg Arena when you were going, was it still a B and an A town when you were going? Because by the time 92 comes along, it's like you're like getting the tag team champions if you're lucky by 89.
Oh no, man. It was big time A town when I went there, and Hogan was on top every month. And what they would do back then is since they were coming to the market every month, they would, make a feud go like three months. Like,
Sure.
the first month, let's say it's Hercules against Hulk Hogan. The first month there's a disqualification. The second month is a countdown, and the third month is a chain match. Like they would milk it for a couple months, the top matches and programs. So like it was always flipping over every month. So yeah, man, growing up, I was lucky enough. And then also William Patterson College in Wayne, New Jersey,
Oh yeah.
which was like 10 minutes from my house. They would have a couple of shows there too. And it would be like the sea-level shows. The first show I ever went to was actually at William Patterson College in Wayne. And I actually caught Lanny Poffo's Frisbee as a kid.
Yeah.
And, there was a security guard there. And he grabbed me over. He was like, "Stay here, kid. I'm going to get Lanny Poffo to come out during intermission time, and I'll have him, sign it, and you can take a picture with him." So he came out, and I got a picture with him, and then, me holding the Frisbee, and then, fast forward 30 years later, and he's doing my events in my store, and we redid that picture with me holding the Frisbee, and I posted on my Facebook page, putting them side to side, man. So it was like a full circle moment.
Can I tell you, only because you know so many wrestlers on off TV, independents, legends, icons, aren't you happy you kind of had that with Lanny? Because what a great guy he was, right?
Oh man, he was fantastic. And what really sucks is that I was giving the Macho Man the '80s Wrestling Lifetime Achievement Award at last year's '80s Wrestling Con. And when I told Lanny about it, he was super, super, super excited. He was going to be there to accept the award for Randy. And let me tell you something. He must have thanked me 20 times. He was
Yeah, that
so
sounds right.
excited. Yeah, he really wanted to do it, and then unfortunately he passed away a few short months before '80s Wrestling Con, and it never happened. But I could say that he was the first wrestler I met as a kid, and then to be able to take the same picture holding the Frisbee with him as an adult was pretty cool, man.
If you were friends with Lanny on Facebook, whether he knew you or not, fan or friend, he would wish you a happy birthday every year. And I told him the story about, it's not as interesting as yours, but when I met him in 2014 and the great experience he gave me as a fan, and how part of that was why I wanted to get in the business and give these great experiences to fans. He was so wonderful when I told him in person 2 or 3 years later. And we whenever I saw him, he would remember me, and he was a great guy. He was a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
And it's crazy because wrestling fans, because you're a historian, a lot of people, that's one of the few words people don't put with you. You're a student of the game. You know your stuff inside and out, not just Jersey, just the country, NWA, WWE, whatever. This is a general question for fans. Do you think wrestling fans can genuinely fathom today that 30 years ago on a given Friday night, same night, the WWE would run the Garden at 7, Nassau at 8, and let's just say the Brandenburg Arena at 8:30 at the same time?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that. I don't think you're going to see that nowadays, man. But I'll tell you what, I mean, the business right now is getting hot enough where I think they can definitely, do 2 shows or 3 shows a night again if they wanted to go that route. I know they're not doing it like back in the day where it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but like on the weekends, right. if they spaced it all out, went to all the big markets, and did, double shots or triple shots in that weekend, man, because really only they outside of TV, they really only do Saturdays and Sundays right now as far as live events go. So I just see, man, that the business is getting hot again. You can feel it. You can see it happening. Their numbers are breaking every record ever this past year. So it's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan. So I think that, yeah, man, I think if it keeps going the way it's going, and I got a feeling it's gonna, you could definitely see that again. Maybe not to that level, but I can definitely see it happening with them running more shows in the future if the money's there.
Yeah, I think it's doable also for there's also like so much wrestling, right? Before it was just 3. It was AWA,
Sure.
WWE, and WCW, and WWE alone was able to do those 3 towns. But if you tell me the Garden is going to be SmackDown, AEW is going to do a live Rampage at Prudential, and NWA is going to run, say, Hammerstein Ballroom, that's very feasible.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, man.
I think it could definitely be done. Plus, the schedules change. All the guys go home on Wednesday now, for the most part.
Sure.
Right. So it's a different type of grind. Speaking of grind, ISPW, how many years now?
Well, I the first show I ever ran for ISPW, the first show I ever promoted was in 1993. I was only 16. For the first few years, I ran events with Dennis Corluzzo. At the
Yes,
time, he was the president of the NWA, probably the biggest independent promoter in the country. He was at one of my wrestling conventions. I was only 17 at the time, and there was like 1,000 people there. And he was there. And when he found out a 17-year-old kid ran that convention, he quickly grabbed me and took me under his wing. And then at the time when we first met, like a week or two after that, if you remember the NWA title tournament,
of
where
course.
Shane Douglas double crossed the NWA and threw the belt to the ground and made it the Extreme Championship Wrestling belt. Dennis did a tournament to crown a new NWA heavyweight champion, which Chris Candido wound up winning. But
That's right.
he wanted to do a NWA fan festival in the daytime and then the NWA title tournament at nighttime. So we partnered up on that together, and we ran that, and we were partners. And then after that, he started doing the Eddie Gilbert memorial shows where we did the
Yep.
convention in the afternoon and the show at night. We were partner. A lot of people don't know we were partners on those events as well. And then the summer of 1997, I was on vacation in Wildwood with Billy Real, who unfortunately passed away last month. May he rest in peace. We were on vacation in Wildwood, and there was a wrestling benefit show at the convention center, Wildwood Convention Center, and it was, I believe it was Larry Sharp that ran it. It was like a fundraiser for the police department, and he wanted to go, and I really didn't want to go, but I wanted him going anyway. But I would always go there as a kid. Whenever I got lucky enough, when I was on vacation, my grandparents would take me down to Wildwood every summer as a
Yeah,
kid, and I got lucky sometimes that WWF was down there while I was down there,
of course.
or maybe I lucked out and my grandmother scheduled it that way, and I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember
For those
specifically.
unaware, Wildwood is the better part of the Jersey Shore.
Oh man, Wildwood is the best. Wildwood is the best.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
So
It's like
yeah,
another
man.
planet.
So I one of the shows I vividly remember there. The main event was King Kong Bundy against Hillbilly Jim, and then fast forward to when I went to that indie show. I wound up talking to one of the security guards, told them I was a wrestling promoter, met with the convention center the next day, and they liked me and they gave me the I got in there. So the summers of '98 and '99. At the time, I was 21 years old, and I was living in Wildwood, and I was running weekly wrestling events at the Wildwood Convention Center.
Wow.
Now, this is during the height of the Attitude Era,
That's
where
right.
the
And
business
you're
is.
bringing in the stars from the era before.
Yes, and not only that, but at the time, I was able to. I had a relationship with WWE where I was able to get third party uh, bookings through Jim Cornette, who was doing that at the time in the office. So
Okay.
every single week down there, I would have I'd have someone from WWE, that WWF there, ECW. I was using those guys, and I even had some WCW guys. And I had Flyboy Rock and Rock. I had
I
a couple
remember
of
you had Flyboy Rocco Rock, Gilbert, a couple different guys that kind of were like not under contract, but kind of in limbo. And they were like, you could take this guy.
yes. I mean, and the wrestling business was hot at the time, so you had all these guys there, and it was really really good, man. And that was the summers of '98 and '99. Then shortly after that, they knocked down that convention center and built a new one, and then WWE took over because it was a way bigger building, like 5 times the size.
Oh yeah, the
And
new if you look at the first one and the second one, it's apples and oranges in size.
yes, yeah, man. So I always wanted, once I saw that convention center up, the new one, like it was like my dream to do a show in there. And I tried literally, man. I'm not even bullshitting you. Every year I would email them and call them for 15 years. And
And
they
was it an
come.
annual thing? You did it the same time of year, or just I
No,
got
no,
to make a phone call?
no. I did the same time of the year, and WW, WWE has an exclusive there, right? But I still did it. I still tried every year. So now the pandemic comes, and then when the pandemic's over, as you know, WWE scaled back on their live events,
Yeah,
and they didn't go to Wildwood for, I believe it was the third. This should be the third summer that they didn't go there.
yeah.
And I called again. I says, listen, I know you're tired of hearing from me, but they knew I was the promoter from back in the day. I says, this is the third summer now. WWE's not there. I really would love the opportunity to do an event there, even just one. it was like a full circle moment for me, and I really, really wanted to do it. And then I caught them on the right ear. This is okay, you got it. So I didn't have much notice to promote it, maybe like 5 weeks. So it was like a last second thing. But
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a shotgun event, but yeah, you were a little under the eight ball. I'll say that.
yeah. So I can still say though, I wound up going back there, which is super cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, back in the day, man, like it was exploding, like, and when you walk up and down the boardwalk, like every single stand, you know how they sell the
All the
shirts.
LED banners. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I mean everything. It was Austin 316 and WW. I mean, like, it was everywhere. So
Do
it was
you
red
think?
hot.
Do you think? And this is a super historian question, and it's not a slight at the other person. You'll understand why I gave you that preface. Do you think that Dennis Carluzzo, on top of your young success, took a liking to you because he said, "Oh well, this kid could possibly do for me what John Arezzi is doing, but for the next 20 years." Do you think your youth is why Dennis Carluzzo picked you to then take a liking to you?
Well, at the time, I was friendly, very friendly with Amy Lee, who was at the time one of Dennis's managers, and she kind of put me over to Dennis, and Dennis took a liking to me through Amy Lee.
Okay.
But I said once that convention came and he saw those people, and then I started working with them, and then fast forward to the summer of '98. After that first show in the Wild, now I'm coming back to the story. So after the first show in '98 in the Wildwood Convention Center, it was NWA wrestling, and dude, there was a lot of people there. And then
Oh yeah.
so NWA was getting all the recognition for the events that were really my events. You know, like
Right.
this was after the Eddie Gilbert shows and the NWA title tournament. Like I'm like I think I'm like 20 or 21 now, and like I want to branch off and start my own promotion. You know,
Right.
not that I had heat with Dennis or anything, but like I wanted something that I can call my own, you know, because I was putting in all this work, but I wasn't really not that I was looking for credit, but it was always NWA or whatever. Like I wanted.
Right. You kind of wanted it. The association was, even if it wasn't Dennis, the association was the NWA, not your entity, because little did people know that, yeah, okay, you felt like, yeah, well, if I didn't help out here, you might not be saying go NWA. Is that safe?
Yeah, no, man. Like I said, I loved Dennis, and I loved doing events with him. He was the best, man. I would always go down to his house, and I would sleep over for the weekend. Like he was like a no joke, man. He was like a second dad to me.
I was
And
gonna
we
say he was
had
a good mentor.
yeah, man. And actually, we had and if you go back and it's got to be somewhere. We had we did an angle where I had a boxing match with Dennis, and Jim Cornette actually turned on Dennis and went with me. And
Yes,
if you
yes,
hear
it's been talked about on the experience.
yeah, I'll
Yes,
just say Jim Cornette always puts it over as the worst match in the history of professional wrestling.
yes.
So I think very very flattered by that, because I know there's been some stinkers out there. But anyhow, then I became Tommy Corluzzo, and I always loved Dennis, loved his family, and there was a little falling out when I started my own promotion, and luckily, a couple months before he passed away, we reconnected and became cool again. So it meant a lot to me to
Yeah.
be able to once again have a relationship with Dennis. And then I remember vividly, I was just sitting in my bedroom and I was scrolling on onewrestling.com, and I saw a link that says NWA president passes away. And like, I was just like, I was like glued to the computer screen. Like it took me like a minute to even click on it. And
Yeah.
then when I clicked on it, I'm reading about it, and I swear to God, man, this is like the creepiest thing. As I'm reading about it and I'm stunned, my phone rings, and the caller ID is Corluzzo, and it was his son Mark calling me to tell me. But
Wow.
it was so creepy that I
Of
literally
course.
had just saw it, and I'm looking at it and trying to process it, and then the phone rings and it's Dennis's name on the phone. Like I was so freaked out by it. But yeah, man, he was he was a character. I have so many stories I could tell about Dennis. He was a huge part of my early upbringing, and as was Off of the Wild Samoan. The
Yeah.
Samoans were always down in Wildwood, and Alpha was always extremely good to me, and we would go up to his WXW, and we were doing like an ISPW WXW invasion at the time. It was really cool and fun, and he had a couple big shows too that he let me be a part of. I remember the Gary Albright Memorial Show.
Yep.
It was a WWE sent a whole bunch of talent, and at the time, um, Too Cool were the tag team champions against like in the height of the Attitude Era, and we did a thing where I came out with my hair spiked like Scotty, and I was called
Yeah.
Tommy Too Cutie. I was trying to join Too Cool, so I mean that was really cool. And then I actually can say that I was the first. I was a part of Batista's first ever match. So they had a battle royal, and it was I think his name was Khan then, and he was in the battle royal, and it came down to him and two of my ISPW guys, and he eliminated them to win it, and then I came in and I hit him from behind, and he turned around and like I think bumped me or did something. But it's cool to say that I was a part of Batista's first ever wrestling match. So there was a
Wow.
lot of fun times. Yeah, that's a little Easter egg. I'll give you another Easter egg too that maybe not everyone knows. Real quickly back to Wildwood, you had mentioned Gilbert would come there. He was, and
Yeah,
he was the WWF light heavyweight champion at the time.
that's right.
So
His
I
dad
had
still traveled with the titles. Yeah.
yeah, so he lived right in Maryland, and I always did my shows on Thursdays. So he was able to do them every week. I gave him dates for the whole summer. So we actually switched the WWF light heavyweight title on the ISPW show. We had Inferno Kid, Danny Inferno. He
Wow.
beat Gilbert. He was announced the new WWF light heavyweight champion, and then the following Thursday we did a rematch, and Gilbert won back his title. So I can say that I am probably the only promoter in the history of wrestling that has switched the WWF title on a show without them knowing about it.
That's probably that's probably exceptionally accurate because I've never heard that before. I know Ricky O had a single defense, but it was a squash. It was a Goldberg match as portrayed by Gilbert. I know Ricky O did that, but an actual switch, you're the first I've heard of.
Yeah, it was something else back then. It was crazy.
And no one calls you. Nobody says, "Hey, why?" Nobody gives Gilbert heat. Hey, why is this happening? Nobody.
Listen, he got it back the next week. I don't think by the time it got around or got back to him, he was the champion again. So
Thank
I never,
God for no
I,
Twitter.
I luckily never caught any heat for it.
Good. So
maybe I won't. Maybe I will now though.
Yeah, now. Yeah. I mean, Gilbert, Kid Con Bundy, Tito Santana, one of your closest friends, Lanny Poffo, everybody under the sun. You have all this success. ISPW is a very featured brand. Before that was a mainstream term in the common lexicon. And then 2014-15, you decide to go. Why?
I actually had gotten a job as the marketing director for the restaurant California Pizza Kitchen.
Yes.
So it was, and I had worked with the company for a while and got this big promotion to being the marketing director. So for all their stores in New York and New Jersey, which was awesome, and it was really cool. I had a company pizza car, which I'd be at the red light and I had this big pizza. I feel like an ass. I had this big pizza on my car. But it was cool, man. I got to go around to all the different stores, and I would set up all their local marketing and set up fundraisers for all the different stores. It was really cool, man. And it was they took care of me too. Like they took care of my phone and I had a company card and a company car and a card. So it was really cool, man. And I was still able to, even though I wasn't being able to do wrestling events because a lot of these events that I was doing were on the weekends because that's,
Sure.
so that was one of the reasons. But I still want to some way, somehow feel like I was connected because, man, once it's in your blood, it's always in your blood. It doesn't matter. You could try all you want.
Yeah.
You're going to some way, somehow go back to it. So I wanted to feel like I was some way, somehow still connected. So for fun and just for a hobby, I opened up 80s wrestling social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now I would just take pictures of guys from back in the day or, old advertisements, matches, whatever, just post them. And then I would tag whoever was in them. So it was just some way, somehow still be involved, because it did feel really weird not being involved,
And I didn't know for months that was your Facebook and Instagram. I forgot who smarted me up, and I was like, oh shit, is he coming back? But I absolutely had that page.
Oh, nice, man. So yeah, so I just like, Hulk Hogan started following me, then John Cena started following me, and then The Rock and Stone Cold and Edge and Ronda Rousey and Sasha Banks and Jericho and pretty much any big name in wrestling follows one of these accounts or not. And then when they started following them, everyone else started following them to the point
Sure.
where right now I have several different accounts, but combined, I got over 1.5 million followers through all the social media brands that I have. So, me being a promoter, I said to myself, I would be absolutely insane if I didn't try to some way, somehow figure out a way to capitalize on this following that I've gained, So I had a ton of history running wrestling conventions from when I was younger. So, and they were called Fan Slam back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of history of running conventions. So like a light bulb went off my head. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do an all 80s wrestling convention. It was only supposed to be a one-time thing. It was in 2019.
That was the one at Play America, yeah.
And I Play America, yeah. So it was supposed to be a one-off. I had this following and wanted to see if I can capitalize on it, and it was awesome. Awesome enough where I said to myself, well, I guess I'm going to have to do another one of these. And
I want to point out that had you not done that event, WWE would have not done signings at that venue. Just saying. Just saying. And I want a job, but I'm just putting it out there. If you didn't find the building, they would have never ran.
Thank you, man. So I did that one and did really good. And I'm like, I guess I have to do another one. So I did a second one, and that did really good. I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to do another one.
Right.
So I had the third one planned at iPlay, and then the pandemic hit. And there wasn't any conventions for a while after that. So, fast forward to once the things got back to somewhat normal, I planned up here this time instead of I gave Central Jersey 2, so I wanted to bring it up here where I'm at. So we switched it to the Men in Sports Arena in Morristown, New Jersey. Now we've had the last 3 of them up here, but we're going to be taking it on the road. We're going to be in Canada next year for 80s WrestleCon, and then also working on other multiple locations possibly for several 80s Wrestling Cons in different markets. Hopefully in 2025, I am working on that right now. But yeah, man. So through that social media following, I just, I did that. And then as I was, as the pandemic came, and then, I didn't think I'd have a problem getting a job because, I could put on my resume that I was the marketing director for a national brand, so yeah. I was fully confident I'd get a job. So I sent my resume out to like 100 different people, and no one got back to me. And I'm like, shit, man. I'm like, I'm now I'm furloughed for a while,
right?
And then they strung me along for a long time. So the pandemic happened in March, and I didn't know that. And then they didn't tell me that I didn't have a job until July. So like that was the whole time. I always thought I was going back. So like, you're not even preparing to try and get another job, So like,
right,
because they kept telling us, you guys come back, you guys coming back. So like I said, I put my resume together. I sent it out everywhere. No one was getting back to me. So I knew someone that did real estate, and I said to my wife, maybe I should go to real estate school. So he does good. I'm sure that I can, do good. I'm to talk to people and outgoing. So
you had sales and brand marketing, sure.
Yeah, man. So I started going to real estate school, and while I'm going to real estate school, I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see an advertisement for a virtual book signing at Bookends in Ridgewood.
Okay.
So when I saw that, a light bulb again went off my head because I know I have this large social media following. So I said, shit, I'm going to do a virtual wrestling signing. So I tested one with Tito because he's right here in Jersey and was no airfare, no hotel, just to see how it would do. And it did pretty good. Cool. So I did another one, a second one with Sergeant Slaughter, and it was gigantic. And after that, I started doing them. I started like once a month, then I did twice a month, then I did 3 times a month, and there was the point where I was doing it weekly because the money was just coming in for it. Everyone that was at home, no one was going out anywhere, and sure enough, everyone else started doing them as well, which is fine, and they're still doing them right now. They're still doing them right now. I pulled back because we're at the point now where people want to, they want a face-to-face encounter. They want a
Yeah.
picture that they can put on their social media platforms. They want to meet the guys now. So once because I was doing, like I said, I was doing almost once a week at the end, and once I started seeing the orders die down a little bit, then I knew it's almost run its course. And I'm sure there's gonna be another thing that comes up in the future that'll replace that. But I was
Yeah.
doing that, and then while I was doing that, I said to my wife, "Listen, I think we should go wrestling." Now, I never in a million years would have thought she would have said, "Yeah, go wrestling," just because I'm in real estate school. And she said, "Yeah," and when she said, "Yeah," I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go all out." So I always wanted to open up a wrestling collectible store. Always wanted to. Since I was a little kid, it was something I always thought of. How cool would it be to have your own wrestling store?
Yeah.
So I
Plus,
opened
there's
up.
not many across the country.
Yeah, man. So I opened up the Wrestling Collector. It's located on Route 23 in Stockholm, New Jersey, and I started doing that. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bring back ISPW too. So I brought back ISPW as well. So now I have, ISPW. I have the store. I have 80s Wrestling Con, and I have 90s Wrestling Con, and I'm tired.
I can imagine now. And there's sometimes ISPW runs 3 times a week. Like,
Yeah, we
did
we
you
we we
did you
just
take the lessons you learned and the recipes, the hits, and the mistakes, and say, if I do this again, I have to do it this way or not at all?
absolutely. You always listen. You're never going to stop learning. I'm still learning right now. And we're coming off a big string of shows since April. We had from April to like the end of May. We had like 6-7 weeks in a row that we're running shows, and that's a lot for an independent promotion in this area. See, the problem is, man, is like, and I don't want to get too much into it because you know me that I always take the high road. At least
Right, right.
I try to anyway. So I don't want to single anybody out. I don't want to point fingers at anyone. I'm just going to make a general statement. And the general statement is a wrestling show where the wrestlers don't look like wrestlers. They don't know how to wrestle, and they just look like fans that came from the audience that you're putting in the ring. So when it's a Friday night and there's a show, and uh, you know Timmy and his wife want to take the two kids out for a night of fun.
Sure.
Let's do something different tonight. Let's go see wrestling, and they go and see the show, and then they see what they see. Now, here's the thing: wrestling, casual wrestling fans or non-wrestling fans, they don't know the difference between ISPW. Uh, and I'm just saying these promotions. I'm not singling anybody out. They don't know the difference between ISPW to ABC Wrestling to
Sure.
XYZ Wrestling. They just know WWE.
Right.
So when they see XYZ come to town and they shit the bed, guess what? When 3 months later, when ISPW comes there, they're gonna say, "Oh, that's those fake guys. We're gonna stay home for free and watch Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and all the big stars and save $100."
Yeah.
What I'm saying. So it's tough, man, because in today's economy and today's day and era, today's day, like I said, you can stay home literally every night and watch wrestling for free. Monday is Raw,
Yeah.
Tuesday is NXT, Wednesday is AEW, Thursdays Impact, Fridays SmackDown, Saturdays Rampage, Sundays there's live event. Like there's always something to stay at
Yeah.
home at and watch for free. So they get a family of four to get them in the car after working all week long and take their family to the show and drop $150-$200 between tickets and souvenirs and food. Man, you got to give them something special.
Oh,
At
yeah.
least quality good wrestling. So
Right, because you hit the nail on the head, right? There's a stigma that, oh, it's not WWE, so it's not wrestling. So you have to get past that hurdle, right?
sure,
And you also have to give them, if nothing else, an experience.
sure.
You have to give them an experience, and then they're going to see what they are not going to realize is they might see somebody that 6 months to 6 years from then will be on that free wrestling that they chose to watch instead of their local independent.
Yeah, man, 100%.
Like there is, it's funny how the story, of course, that's to finish the story is the big sexy term for this year. Cody Rhodes leaves WWE, but nobody knows about that journey before AEW. and he was on the Indies. Drew McIntyre, Jinder Mahal, those guys that came back and were successful were on the Indies. Some of them for the first time in their lives, or since they were teenagers, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's a fact of the next one of those guys could be in your ring or anywhere else across the country tonight.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Who's the one guy that you had that you knew being in the first or the second run, he's getting signed? Without hurting any feelings, because unfortunately you can't tell, but sometimes like he's getting signed.
Sure. Well, Steve Carino went on I used to use him all the time. And Sean Bennett was actually the ISPW referee before him going to WWE.
Yep.
I tell you what, looking at today's guys, I mean, these guys today, man, are so talented. And, someone like GKM, how he's not on national TV right now. And I wouldn't be surprised in the near future if he is, because he is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Your guy, Ray Kalitri, man, he's doing a great job.
Great talent.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of guys out there that have a lot of potential to make it to the big time,
Yeah, I mean, I think right now wrestling is in fact on an uptick. We've talked about that at the beginning of the program, but so is indie wrestling. I think in terms of talent,
sure.
The same way that we talk about WWE's guys, all wrestlers, AEW, NWA, that they're the athletes that the generation we loved did not have because they were different types of athletes 30 years ago. The independents have a crop of talent from charisma and athleticism. It's kind of like that early 2000s era. You were part of it. We're seeing a boom in talent. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Today's generation, man, is very, very talented. Very talented.
Before we get into plug in the Totowa Day this coming Saturday, when are you gonna put up weekly shows, man? I feel like that's the last thing missing for ISPW.
Man, my formula.
I'm not looking for a scoop, but an answer, yes.
Our formula is a little bit different than other independent promotions, because the majority of my events are fundraiser driven with at middle schools and high schools, and we more concentrate on doing the live events, and I've been taping some stuff, and we've had some stuff on Premier Wrestling, and we plan on having some more as well. But dude, the problem is that I am just so busy. I think that's the main thing, because I don't just have ISPW. I have the store. I have 80s Wrestling Con. I have 90s Wrestling Con. I got other stuff I'm working on. So I'm constantly on the go. So that's one of the reasons why, just because it's a time thing. And not only that, I'm more driven to do live event fundraisers, because, like I said, you can sit at home and watch wrestling on TV for free each and every night, and there's a billion other independent promotions in this area, unfortunately. So you have to really give the people a reason, like I said, to get up on a Friday night, pack up the family, go to a show. So they might not do that for an independent wrestling show, but if it's an independent wrestling show for Sally's little softball team, you know what? Let's go and support the team.
There's some motivation, incentive.
So that that's kind of more my formula than doing weekly shows. So that between that and just me being torn in 1,000 other directions, that's probably the two reasons why. But you'll definitely see more live content in the future for sure.
That's what I want to hear, because I think that's something that that ISPW could absolutely benefit from.
Sure, I agree.
Continue the brand growing. And I'm going to tell you the same thing I told KM last night when it comes to that Canada show. I have a passport. That's all I'm going to say.
You're in, bro. You're in.
Let's talk Totowa Day this coming Saturday. Give me the rundown of the card. I'm going to assume Shining Star Ray Kalitri's on there. Talk to me.
Yeah, man. So this is actually the third year we are a part of Totowa
Day. Third time with ISPW, right?
Yes, sir. So Totowa has a lot of history with me, dating back to the 90s, where I used to do my Fan Slam wrestling conventions. They're at the Holiday Inn in Totowa. And WWF used to run in Totowa also back in the early 80s. They ran shows at Ice World. And there was an Ice World in Totowa back in the day.
Oh, so my God. I remember Ice World.
Yeah, man. Actually, and I told this story in another podcast. It's a really weird thing. But if you ever notice the hole that was in SB Jones's back, He actually
Yes,
got stabbed in his back in the parking lot of Ice World in Totowa. So that's a little historian trivia for you.
I did
Um,
not know that. I always
yeah,
noticed the mark. It's very clear on his matches on tape, but I didn't know that was why.
yeah, and so there's a lot of history of wrestling in Totowa. So it's cool for me to be able to run these events in front of a huge audience. The last year's was about I'd say it was over 1,500 people. The first year was definitely over 1,000 people. It just grows every year. It's the whole town comes out for it. They have axe throw, and here's the cool part. I mean, it's all for free. So outside of the food trucks, like all the activities are free. So if they have a Ferris wheel, that's free. They have axe throwing, that's free. They have the wrestling, that's free. They have a couple concerts there and stuff. It's like a fun day for the town, and
Yeah,
we've been a big part of it the last 3 years. So, and then we do events at the Totowa PAL. So it's a great branding opportunity for us as well to get in front of a larger population in Totowa, and then that's when we hopefully hook them as fans. The next time we're in town at the Totowa PAL, they come to it, and our attendance has been up there as well. So it definitely helps.
I always use the analogy that New Jersey is like the last real territory because you could go to Totowa and then you could end up in, let's just say, Garfield, and they're like, "What's ISPW?" So you're hitting all these markets in such a strategic manner, and I commend you for that because you're doing it great.
Thank you, man. Like I said, I try and unfortunately, there's a million other companies in the area that are running every weekend. So
Yeah, it's
it's
tough.
it's a
Trouble.
listen. It's really oversaturated. Like I have my niche, and that's I'm happy that I do.
I
I
like
really
your roster. You've got the legacy talent with the Bull James, Doring, Crowbar, and then you've got guys like a GKM, like a Ray, like a Leo Sparrow. Um, when you're looking for talent and building that roster, are you aware that you have to have a little bit of everything, or are you looking more youth driven? Where are you at with your roster? Because it's pretty balanced.
Thanks, man. Yeah, listen. One thing that you're not going to find on one of my shows, an ISPW show, is that it's someone that can't work. That you got to be really good to be a part of ISPW. Like I said, because I don't want to go to a market and have wrestlers that are dressed up as fans, and you kill the market and you can't go back there. So you want to have guys that know what they're doing and
Yeah,
can go out there and deliver really good matches. So, I definitely scout stuff and look through stuff, even though, you'll never really see me at another independent show. Once in a blue moon, I'll pop in just to check it out. But I listen, like you said, have my pulse on my finger on the pulse. As far as I know who everyone is around this way, even if I haven't used them yet, I'm
yeah.
familiar with them. And yeah, I'm always looking for new guys. And then also, come the fall, I'm gonna switch things up a little bit because it's called Independent Superstars of Pro Wrestling. So that's everybody around it, not just one roster. So I'm
I
going to be
like that.
giving a lot of guys chances to come in and plug guys in here and there and switch things up a little bit come the fall. I want to definitely bring some new faces to this area that haven't been here before for anyone else.
I like that. I like that. I like that you're always thinking for the future and the next step for the brand and for yourself even. Um, we've come to um, the rapid fire part of the program, and this is something I'm looking forward to with you because you've been through so much, done so much, owned so much. So with that being said, the one name you wish you had a picture with, and I asked because I wonder if it's still the same name you told me a year ago. Out of all the talent you worked with and booked through the years, the one you wish you got a picture with.
Bruno Sammartino.
Really?
Yes. Who did I tell you last year?
Bobby Heenan.
Oh, well, him too. Shit. Dude, listen, there's a ton. Listen, when I was younger, man, I
And
had
that's a good
everyone.
pick. I as a biased person, I would have been like, no, I would have taken the picture with Heenan. But I have a Bruno photo, so maybe that's why.
Well, listen, back in the day, like I was young, man. Like I was only 21 years old, 22 years old, running these big. Oh, and back then, I'm sorry, I was doing conventions when I was 16, 17 years old, and I didn't want uh, the wrestler. And back then, it was different than it is now. Like back then, you were looked upon as like a mark if you went in that.
Yeah, no,
The
yeah,
wrestlers.
those pictures were not. Yeah,
So I never did that because I knew even as a youngster that I was 17 years old and I needed to try and figure out a way how these wrestlers can take me seriously, you know. So I never would take pictures with any of them. And I listen, I've had everyone from Bobby the Brain Heenan to Paul Orndorff to Bruno Sammartino, Georgie Animal Steel, Nikolai Volkov, like all these amazing talents that are no longer with us. And I don't have a picture with any of them. So now I go out of my way to take pictures of guys that are at my events, and then also I take pictures of the events themselves, so I have memories. Because back then, dude, I'm lucky enough I have some of my big show posters left, but
yeah.
like, I was in the newspaper all the time and the magazines, and I don't have any of that stuff.
It's crazy
And
because people don't realize that this was not common. It wasn't.
yeah, so
You know.
I don't have any of that stuff, man. So like, I recently someone came in and gave me a poster from my favorite convention I ever ran was a tribute to WrestleMania 1. It was the night before WrestleMania 20 at Madison Square Garden. And back then, there was no really like fan festival or stuff like that. So, like,
Yeah.
dude, I had people from all over the world came to it.
No way.
Yeah. So, there was always my favorite event, but I don't have any of my stuff from back in the day. Like you said, I'm 20 years old, 21, 22 years old. I was worried about going out to the bar and hanging out after the show is
Right.
not taking advantage of the situation, that amazing opportunity I had in front of me at the time. So someone came into the store a couple months back and actually had the poster for my first ever WrestleMania 1 tribute convention and gave it to me. So I have it now. It's super cool that someone came
Oh,
in, and
that's great.
someone else came in one time too and gave me a flyer of my first ever event. So it's cool to get that once in a while. And I trust me, anything going forward, I save everything. I take pictures of everything, and I've learned how to appreciate the stuff that I have now, because back then I definitely didn't.
Well, you were so in the moment and growing up in the business that you kind
Sure,
of just were day to day. Not that you're not now, but at 17 to 25, it's a totally different gambit, right?
absolutely.
The one name that you just couldn't book.
One name that I couldn't book. I've
Just
luckily
never
been,
happened.
yeah. I've always wanted to have Hogan. Maybe one
Okay.
day I'll have Hogan at an '80s wrestling con. I've never had
I
Ric
mean, that's
Flair.
the name, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. That's I'll make it happen one way or another one day. Ric Flair. I never worked with Flair. I'd love to work with Flair. It didn't pan out this time when I had the Four Horsemen. Uh,
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Was he booked? Did you try?
Yeah, he was unavailable. He was
Gotcha.
unavailable.
Okay.
Trying to think who else. Uh, Sting. I'd love to work with Sting. I never had a chance to work with Sting before, so he's definitely on my. I guess we'll turn this into like a bucket list type of thing. So
Sure.
Hogan, Flair, Sting. Brett, I just worked with last year. Brett he freaking killed it.
Yeah, Brett's
Um,
awesome. Brett's a cool dude.
Jesse the Body Ventura. I worked with the year before that. That was pretty cool. Yeah, man. I'd probably say Hogan. Hogan's definitely at the top of the list of someone that I would love to do something with before it's all said and done.
The best venue you ever ran.
Wildwood Convention Center, the new one.
The one venue you wish you could run.
Madison Square Garden.
Okay, to the top. I like that.
But listen, I would listen. I would need big time money and big time players. Unfortunately, I couldn't probably bring G Cam versus Ray Kalitri there. So we would
No, you
need.
couldn't. Maybe
Oh,
as the
they
first
could be
half
on
of
the
the card.
show. Absolutely, be on the show.
First half of the card or pre-main, sure.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm saying these are kind of like dream situations. You're saying, right?
Of course.
Okay, yeah, oh, yeah. Actually, MSG or I would hold off on MSG if it was just a fantasy situation. I would have to say the Brendan Byrne Arena, which is still there. It's the ISOT Center, but it's not. No one's using it. It's nothing inside of it. But
Yeah.
I would say that because that's the building I went to every month as a kid to see WWF. So it's what's awesome is that we actually have a big show at the end of this month called the Brendan Byrne Brawl. We're doing it at the Meadowlands Racetrack, which is in the same parking lot
That's right.
as the Meadowlands. So, dude, I posted. I don't know if you saw. I posted on my Facebook page yesterday, there is an actual gigantic billboard
I
for
saw
the
that.
ISPW show in front of MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
So, dude, like, it's like fucking. I don't really pinch myself that many times because I'm always going to the next thing. But something like that, you stop and it takes your breath away because you remember vividly your parents taking you to that very building every month as a kid, and there's a gigantic billboard in front of the arena at the exit for my show coming up in the same parking lot. So it's pretty surreal to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love a full circle moment like that. How about this one? No promises. I'm not saying anything yet, but the 3 talents that could possibly be in ISPW in the future.
Oh man, there's a lot of guys out there that I haven't used
or
yet.
gals, of course, or whomever.
That you might have to let me do a to be continued on that one because I'd like to give it some thought instead of just throwing out some rapid names.
Best match you ever saw, best match you ever booked.
Best match I ever saw. I would say because of me as a kid and in the moment, and I know it's not, it wasn't a 5-star classic, but you don't really have to judge a match on that. You judge it by, the attendance, the merchandise sales, the whole 9 yards. So what I might look at as one of the greatest matches ever, someone else might say, hell no, it was Daniel Bryan against Ukisiki Bakabupu last week. So, and that's just a make-believe Japanese name.
I'm sure it's gonna be a gimmick in 2 weeks.
Yes. So yeah, man. So I look at like this past year with Cody, beating Roman Reigns for the belt at WrestleMania. Just like use that example, dude. Everyone was probably on the edge of their chairs.
Oh, it was surreal. We were constantly jumping out of them.
Yeah, man. And but for me, I'm gonna say Hogan Andre because I remember being a kid. And I actually watched it on closed circuit TV at the William Patterson College. And I just remember as a kid watching the big screen, Hogan picking up a body slamming Andre. And like, I just remember like jumping up and down for joy when he won the belt and won the match. And yeah, that's a memory that I'll never forget. Best match I ever promoted. A lot of really good ones, man. But I would have to give it to last year. We did a steel cage match. We did 2 of them, but the first one between Rick Recon and Crowbar, anyone that goes back and watches that first cage match, those guys absolutely tore it up. The first one they did, they had the people literally on the edge of their chairs the entire match. It was a fantastic match, and I urge everyone to go onto YouTube and watch it. There was 2 of them. It was the first one, the one in West Milford. It was a fantastic match. Crowbar went to the top of the cage and did a leg drop off the top of the cage on the Recon through a table. The place was just explosive for it.
To coin a term from Dusty Rhodes, your glove 5, your 5 closest friends in the business.
You know what, man? I've learned through all the years in the business that you really don't have any friends in the business. Back when I was younger, I would, after the shows, I would go out and I would hang out with everybody and we'd go out drinking and eating and having fun. And, as you grow up and you have different relationships and experiences with people, you kind of, especially as a promoter, it's hard because, you don't know really who your friends really are and who's trying to kiss ass and get something out of it for themselves, And as a promoter, that's a tough spot to be in because are they friends with me because they really like me, or are they friends with me because I can do something to possibly help them out in the future? And I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that's how I feel about anyone in particular. I'm just making a general statement. For me, it's tougher. If you ask a wrestler who their top 5 favorite friends are in the business, they would be able to tell you that in 3 seconds. It's different as a promoter because you just have a different, you're on a different level as far as talent and promoters go, at least for me, man, because I've been around a real long time and I've seen a lot of stuff and I've been through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And
no, if I'm being honest, I really respect you for that answer.
Yeah, man.
You didn't come out and say, "Oh, do." No, that was the most truthful thing.
Yeah, man. Well, you told me. Listen, you told me before this started we were going to shoot. So, we're going to shoot. But I mean, there's many people I'm friendly with in the business. But at the end of the day, everyone is out for themselves in any business, but especially in the wrestling business.
Absolutely, everybody's about self-growth, especially in the wrestling business. How they go about it. That's another podcast in and out of itself.
I'll tell you, my best friend is, and he was in the wrestling business, is Ace Darling, Mike Moraldo. He was probably the top independent wrestler on the indies in the 90s. And he's actually the godfather to my daughter, Emily. And we are like brothers, man. And he's my guy. He's my guy. Crowbar, I have a really good relationship with Crowbar. We actually just teamed up. He's a friend of mine. We teamed up and did a show in his hometown, actually.
Yeah, WrestleMania.
Yeah. So we're actually doing another one there on November 1st. It's called it's going to be called All Saints Showdown. It's on November 1st. So we're going to be doing another big show there. But yeah, man,
WrestleMania has been kind of like ISPW. It's been in demand since its absence. I was on the first 5 or 6 shows of WrestleMania, so I'm so happy that it's back.
Oh, nice, man. Awesome.
Yeah, so happy that it's back. Believe it or not, I can make a phone call to blank right now.
Randy Orton.
Okay, that is not what I was expecting, but it's a damn good answer. Best memory with your dad.
That's a tough one. Oh man, that's tough. Just him. Him coming to the shows. I know that I always remember him being at the front table, vividly at the old Wildwood Convention Center shows. He would be sitting at the front table and he would be collecting the money. And when he was at the front table, there ain't nobody getting in for free. He would even stop. He would even stop the wrestlers sometimes, and they'd have to tell him, "Oh no, I'm one of the wrestlers on Tommy's show." But yeah, man, anything with my dad, I remember vividly.
The one thing I'm going to do before I quit the business, if I ever do,
work with Hulk Hogan.
Okay. If nothing else, I hope that my legacy in pro wrestling is
being one of the top independent promoters in the history of professional wrestling.
I think you're well on your way if you haven't already made that first inkling already. I got to say, I'm so glad that we got to do this. I can't thank you enough for your time because I know it's valuable. I think I talked your head off enough. I really, again, can't thank you enough. I hope to see you sooner than later. Total a Day. It's this Saturday. This is a Facebook exclusive. It'll be on YouTube immediately following. ISPW hits Total a Day for the 3rd time with a stack card, stellar talent. It's this coming Saturday in Totowa as part of Total a Day. Tommy Fierro, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we can do it again in the future. I enjoyed it.
I hope so. We'll do it again, and I'll see you soon. This has been The Voice, Cheyenne Ortiz.